And I actually have a fairly large pie plate too for this. Alright, so that's pretty good. It's a good circle. And don't worry if this takes you some work. I've been making pies like almost once a week for the last month now to get in good practice with this. So that's basically all it takes is practice. So now it's looking pretty good. It's looking big enough, I think. So what I'm going to do now is fold it over the rolling pin because it's getting too big to lift just whole by itself. And then I'm going to lay it onto the pie plate and settle it into place. And shift it if I need to so that it's nicely, evenly resting in the dish.
That too.
Alright, so it's even. I kind of make sure that it's
And that one.
down. Alright, and it ruffles a little bit, so I want to try to have that somewhat even, ruffling evenly. And now what I'm going to have to do is roll out the top crust and put that in, but we'll pause the video while I roll that out. Rolling?
Yes.
Alright, so now I have rolled out my other ball of dough, made it a little smaller because it only has to cover the top, it doesn't have to sink in. And then I put it on my special lattice cutter device, and I'm going to kind of try to roll in from the edges on this so it doesn't spill out over the sides. And you'll see in a second that the cutter starts to show through the dough. And the diamonds that are being cut by the lattice cutter start to fall through. This is kind of where it starts to get a little bit tricky because the diamonds don't always want to fall through easily. So you have to kind of whack them out a little bit. And then also do a little pressing on each individual diamond to push it through.
Maybe whack that one down.
Yeah, I'll give it another whack here. Knock some more through. Push, 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 push. Get all the diamonds pressed through. And when I, just before I laid the dough over the lattice cutter,
Whack it a little bit more.
Yeah. Before I laid the dough over the lattice cutter, I floured it a bit so that it will slide off the cutter more easily. Okay, so now all the diamonds are passed through. Push them to the side. I'll just bake those separately with a little cinnamon and sugar for snacks. Then I lift that part out and see how it slides around because I floured it. So now I'm ready to pour in the filling. So focus on the empty crust. And here comes the filling. I made this morning. Just got to stir it up a little bit so the juices are even.
And what kind of apples are these?
I use Fuji apples because they cook up really firmly, and I prefer to use cooked filling
I wish you could smell this.
because it ends up really filling the pie thoroughly. And this is actually a dozen apples here, so I'm putting a whole dozen apples into one pie. And I think this is actually going to be the fullest pie I've ever made so far. I keep trying to kind of push the limits here to see how full I can get one because I like to get a lot of pie for my effort here. And then I try to smooth it out, get it all into the corners, and make sure it's not rising up over the edges too much. And then it's, if you bring the camera up higher, higher, and stand up so you can get a good view from the top down. The lattice is just a little bit bigger than the pie itself, so I'll start right at the edge there and slide it off, and then we'll pause it in a second here. What I need to start doing is folding the edge over so that it makes a nice rolled crust at the edge. And actually, so Chris can get a better close-up of this, let me put on the close-up lens with the light here. Alright. So now Chris can get in nice and close on the edges while I fold them over and roll them, tuck them in.
No, it doesn't look like you need to get them all the way in, like exactly through this little grove right here. Right here.
Yeah, basically I want something that just looks nice without looking like a robot made it. I tend to sometimes err on the side of being a little too perfectionistic with things, so I try to hold myself back and let it look a little bit rustic still. Alright, and there it is. Let me do the camera and you can see the edge all the way around, and I will remove the close-up lens and get a wider shot. So there's the finished product, and the last shot that I'll add will be the out of the oven shot. And one other thing that I forgot, on the subject of forgetting here, I keep forgetting to buy a pie crust metal protector for while it's baking so that the edge doesn't burn before it's finished. So what I always have to do is take aluminum foil and wrap around the edges to protect the crust from burning. And then in the last few minutes I pull this thing off to brown it up properly. So that's all. I just wanted to let you know that's an important thing, to make sure you don't have an over browned crust on the top, because it has to bake now for about 45 minutes or so. And there it is, all finished, baked, and now it's got to cool off a little bit so we can slice it and eat it. Turned out pretty good. And I hope this helps you make a better apple pie for yourself too.